Email marketing in 2024 sucks for most companies. If you give me 30 minutes, I will show you exactly how we do it for ourselves to help us dominate and all of our customers. What's up, guys? I'm Kyle Milan. Today is Tuesday, even though it's the day after a holiday and I'm not prepared like I normally am. We're going live. We're talking about some email marketing stuff today. So let's get into it. Every week I go live on Tuesdays. Every other week I go live on Thursdays with Alex to talk about industrial sales. Today, we're talking about marketing. We're talking about email marketing in 2024. What works? All right, so email marketing in 2024. You guys doing it? I don't know, but let's talk about it. Bullet point number one. Point number one. Traditional methods. We can't talk about what works without talking about what you guys are doing right now. And by you guys, I mean you industrial marketers out there. What's the historical that you guys have been doing? This is how it works. So many industrial agencies or industrial companies, manufacturing companies are like, yeah, we're doing email marketing. What are you guys doing? We peel back the layers of that onion and we find out that a lot of it stinks pretty bad. So traditionally, people are saying, a couple different areas. Number one, a lot of companies are sending the emails out from a generic email address. What do I mean by generic? Sales at, marketing at, Susie at, new insights at, some sort of generic email address. That's number one that manufacturing companies are doing. Number two, they're not doing it consistently. You guys are sending out broadcast emails. It's like, I got a list of, list size doesn't even matter. 200, 2,000, 20,000. Once a month, I'm pushing this email out there. What are my hopes for it? I'm hoping somebody's going to click a link and come to the website. That's what typically is happening. Or you guys have worked with an agency, maybe not an agency like MFG Tribe where we know how to do it. We're sending out hundreds of thousands of emails a month with very high engagement rate based on what works, based on what I'm going to walk through with you guys today. But you work with an agency, and the agency's like, no, you need to do it. You need to do it consistently. Once every few weeks, send out an email. There's issues with it. The copy, the design, the look, the feel, the who it's coming from, frequency, all those things are problems. You just don't do it the right way. And how do I know the right way? It's because we do it, right? Data doesn't lie. This is not based on theory. This is not me saying like, oh, you should do it this way because in theory this is what works. This is just strictly based on the data, which we track every single month for our clients and review it and then make adjustments because that's how marketing works. It's never a set in stone thing. I can tell you what works today, which we're going to go through. That could change in 6 months, little micro adjustments. It could change drastically in 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. But the traditional, you just gotta hang it up and say, what does the data show us? What is your open rate with your traditional? You sub 10% open rate, sub 15%? Maybe you're like, no, dude, 20% open rate. Okay, that's cool. Let's move on to the next one. Click rate, bounce rate once that traffic comes to the site. How many deals and opportunities are coming from it? Because all of these vanity metrics of sends, opens, clicks, etc., that's what they are. It's vanity. It's like, I brag about this, but if they don't result in opportunities, what does it matter? I would rather send it to 100 people and get 10 deals than 1,000,000 people and get the same. It has to result in actual opportunities. You have to be tracking it. So how are you tracking it right now? Are you using a MailChimp, Constant Contact? Are you using a Pardot, Marketo, Apollo? Are you using something like that? Are you using HubSpot? We're a HubSpot partner agency. There isn't an agency out there in this space that knows HubSpot like we do. And there's certain things that you need to pay attention to and certain things you need to do. HubSpot is the best, and I'm going to explain to you why when we go through this list. This is what works. But you have to look at your data because it doesn't lie. If your data is showing you this is not working, I mean, you can get into the details of A/B testing subject line, A/B testing the copy, the video, the links, the number of links, all that stuff. You can go through all the testing. I'm going to tell you one thing. You got to break it down. Everything's very simple. But look at the data and it'll tell you if it's working or not. So the first action that you're going to have to take after you realize that your traditional methods are probably not working very well, let's go bullet point number 2 over here. Number 2 is going to be build a list. Well, Kyle, I already have a list built. Well, your list probably sucks. It's that simple. If you're looking for new contacts, use something like Seamless AI, Zoom Info, something like that. Don't buy a list from somebody, something like that. And if you guys are already like, no, my list is good. Build a better list. Make it more accurate. Break it down into categories. If you offer manufacturing as a service, meaning you have equipment, people pay you X amount of dollars to make parts off of that equipment, or you have facility services where it's service of I'm going to do this to your facility, paint the roof on the inside, clean up stuff. Regardless of what it is, you need to break your lists into smaller lists. So it has to go from maybe it's geographic location. Ideally, it'd be like industry. So if you're making stuff for aerospace, medical, automotive, industrial, agriculture, appliance, etc., break your total list into smaller verticals, right? Based on industry. That's kind of step one. Here's the reason why. When you get into the copy, it's a lot easier for you to be relevant with your copy if you can be specific to an industry. We've got a client right now that we're bringing in, I think, 3,000 to 5,000 people per month per vertical. And we got it all laid out over the next 6 months. Aerospace vertical, defense vertical, EV, automotive, space vertical. So we got all these verticals laid out in a strategy for like 6 to 8 months. We've got certain amount of verticals per month, certain amount of people per vertical, and then copy per those people. Copy meaning copywriting. So if you break it into smaller bite-sized groups and you can be more strategic and you look at movement, it's like, I got 500 per industry. I sent an email to this industry of 500, I got this type of results back. I sent this other email out to a group of 500, this types of results. And you can start comparing verticals. But you have to start with like, is my data good in this list? A lot of times the data that we come across from companies like, yeah, we do email marketing. We got a list, we got 5,000, 20,000, 120,000 people. We start to email them and it's like, wait, you haven't touched this person in 2.5 years. This data is probably bad. So you can use something like Never Bounce or any sort of bounce software where you put their email address in it. It's going to cost you a little bit of money. I'm talking like $100. Like I think Never Bounce, which is owned by ZoomInfo. Huge fan of ZoomInfo. Never Bounce is owned by them, rightfully so. I think that the acquisition was super intelligent. Maybe $125 to do like 10,000 contacts. You upload the contacts into it and you say, check to see if these emails are good. And it's just doing its thing. You can even integrate Never Bounce into your CRM system, Salesforce, HubSpot, etc. So you can clean up your data real time. But you want to use something like that to say, like, if I've got 5,000, 10,000 people, first thing I want to start with is my data good? And if it's like, okay, it's 80% good, okay, check. Because you can't move on to measure the effectiveness of your email marketing campaign if you don't know the percentage of accuracy to the first variable, which is the contact. So it's not even like a, do they need it? It's, is it even the right person's information? That's going to mess with bounce rate. That's going to mess with open rate. That's going to mess with click rate. You're going to be like, I sent it out to 10,000 people. We had a 20% bounce rate. So really you sent it out to 8,000 people. Well, your percentage of open over the 10,000 as a denominator is going to be worse than if you said only do it over the 8,000 that were delivered. So there's a lot of factors that go into this, but start with cleaning up your list. Never Bounce or any sort of like email bouncing software. Just Google search it. You'll find one. There's only a handful that are out there that are like really prominent and good. Never Bounce, I personally have used. We have a license with it. We use it all the time for ourselves and for our clients. That's what I think is the best. There could be betters out there. But start with cleaning up your list first, then breaking it into industries. Or if you're like, hey, these people here, I would push these services. That could be a segmented list. So you want to segment it down to where it's not just a shotgun approach, but you're more rifle focused. Like these people, I would clean their ductwork, right, for their facility. These other people, because of their location, their size, et cetera, I would do this other service. I want to push this other service to them and have questions around that. So break it down to however your manufacturing environment is, whatever it is that you do. Think about it like, if I wanted to bring this group down to 3 to 5 segmentations, what would they be? Does not matter how many people in it. It could be 10 people in one, 20 in another. If at a bare minimum, it brings your awareness to the fact that you're heavy in one area and light in others. If you say, I want more automotive work, I want more aerospace work, but then you look at your list and you're like, I don't have automotive or aerospace people. I have 50, and everybody else I have 5,000, medical, et cetera. You need to focus on that list of 50. Seamless AI, ZoomInfo. If you don't have the money for that, do it old school. and just like use other programs. I think Apollo AI has it. Hunter.io, right? Lucia. So Hunter, Lucia, Lusha, that has a good thing. It's like $50 a month for 50 contacts, and it integrates with LinkedIn as a little Chrome extension. So you can be like, ooh, this person, I want their information, add them to my contacts in Lucia, and it finds them, gets their information, puts them in the list. So, I mean, even $50 a month for Lucia, I mean, that's a good deal. So build that list. Number 2 action, after you've realized that. So number 3 bullet point, number 2 action. This is key. Sequences. Sequences. But Kyle, sequences is a HubSpot term. That's right, it is. That's what we use here. We use HubSpot terminology. One-off emails that are threaded. Huge game changer. We've been doing it for the last 17 months. We have abandoned completely, I shouldn't say completely, 90% of our email marketing comes from sequences. So let me break down what a sequence is. You get them right now. Guarantee I get them right now. A sequence is, like, let's go back to 2 years ago. Email programs, Google, Apple, Outlook, etc., have tightened their security on what's being delivered because enough people have been like, dude, I'm sick of the spam. So what they've done is they've said every marketing email that gets sent out there, it has unsubscribe links at the bottom. You have to have your address and unsubscribe or update preferences. That is a law because you're using automation to do it. And it's just I don't know if it's it's probably the Can Spam Act. So once you have that, imagine that's obviously in the code of the email, right? That you have that. So the email providers are like, look to see if it has this code. Oop, it does. It's probably spam because it's been sent with an unsubscribe. I'm going to put them into this list. For Gmail, it's like promotions or updates. For Outlook, it could be like, we're just putting it to spam. For Apple, could be the same thing. But that drastically tanked open rates for marketing emails. It does not matter if you had workflows set up or automation set up to where it's like, this list of automotive people get this email first. And then 7 days later, they get this next email. And then based on if they opened that or clicked that, then I have this if-then branch. And then if they opened it, they get this other email. But if they didn't open it, they go down this other path and get this other email. None of that matters. Those are all great workflows. But the issue is that they're not being delivered to the actual inbox. Started like almost 2 years ago. They started really tightening it up. And so the way around that is sequences. So sequences are one-to-one email. Apollo.io does have sequences. HubSpot, the leader of sequences. So there's numerous companies out there, but what you want to look for is, and it may not be called sequences, what you want to look for is people that say, I'm going to send this email from Kyle to Joe. And the email's going. And the subject line is like content that'll make you help your marketing. And then I'm very short with my copy, and we'll get into that. And then I send that email. It gets delivered into his inbox by default. If his address is good, his contact information is good, going back to the build a list, by default, it's going to have a massively higher likelihood to get delivered to his inbox because sequences do not require the unsubscribe at the bottom. It looks like an email that I just wrote. It has my signature line. You can scroll down at the bottom. There is no unsubscribe, update preferences, address, etc. There's none of that with these sales sequences. Then Joe doesn't respond. It's been 7 days. And day 7 rolls around, day 8 rolls around, and you know what is next in that automation workflow? Joe gets a response to that first email. So now we're talking about threaded replies. So he got the first email. Now he's going to get a second email that is threaded to it. So now it goes from 1 email to now 2. And it's going to say, hey, Joe, following up on the email that I sent below, blah, 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 blah. Short copy. And it looks like I wrote it. Now, if you go fancy with like banners and all this stuff and like lengthy text and like, oh, I was just thinking of you, or like the cheesy stuff, or like, congratulations, I noticed that you work at this company, insert company variable, and you've been here for this long, insert years, according to LinkedIn profile, etc. You're going to come off as cheesy, and people aren't going to want to do business with you because they know that it's marketing. But a way to trick the servers, trick the email providers and the email readers, go to sequences. Your open rate is going to go up to 30, 35%. As long as your data is good in your list, it will go up. Your click rate will increase as long as your copy is good. But your click rate can go 12, 15, 17% click rate. So open rate increase, click rate increases. Now is the time to use this if you haven't, because this will be broken because people like you and me are going to beat it up. We're going to use it to our advantage. And then eventually the email service providers are going to be like, ha, I figured out how I can tell the difference between a one-off email and these sequences that everybody's talking about. As soon as they do that, now you're back to 2005 email marketing, right? Same thing that happened then. Email marketing came out, people abused it, things get put in place, marketers break everything, things get put in place to reduce the likelihood of spam, et cetera. And still 20 to 25 years later, we're still dealing with the same issue, but we're just trying to figure out ways around it, right? So it's like we're boxing with the email providers and they're like, oh, I got you cornered, dude. And you're like, nope, I'm going to slip out of this. I'm going to send sequences. You can't detect it. Eventually they will detect it. So use it and beat it up while you can. But these sequences are great because it's all threaded. You don't have the update preferences and unsubscribe at the bottom. It's a threaded email response. The open rate is drastically higher. The click rate, the engagement rate, the opportunities, deals you're going to get from it. Like I said, HubSpot. So to get this with HubSpot sequences, I think that you need Sales Hub Pro, which you can get Sales Hub Pro for $100 a month per seat if you're a new HubSpot user. If you want to do automation, where I build a list of 10,000 people and I've got 5 salespeople, I need each of them to get 2,000 contacts and they need to be divided these certain ways. Well, then you need Marketing Hub Pro and Sales Hub Enterprise. All in all, though, with discounts that you can get through us, you got 5 salespeople, you can get that for under $1,000, maybe around $1,100, between let's say $1,950 to like $1,200, depending on the timing. That's not just like on a random Tuesday. That's like end of quarter deals, end of month deals sometimes. But you can get some decent discounts. They want people to use this. But for $1,200 a month, $1,300, maybe you got 10 users, it's a good deal. And you can automate everything. Or if you can't do it, let us just do it. But at a minimum, you're looking at, you can do Sales Hub Pro, create some sequences, send emails out to people, $150 a month or $100 a month, plus maybe marketing starter or something like that for like $50 a month. So maybe $200 a month you're in it. Now you have to change this, like compare this up to Apollo's stuff. They have sequences. Apollo's a good system, not as robust, not as beefy as HubSpot, but it's a good system. Might be able to get it for cheaper. But you got to look at this and say, I'm going to do email marketing. If you're doing any sort of email marketing, go towards sequences. These are emails from a single person. Kyle, who do these emails come from? The salesperson. You got a group of 5, you got a group of 2, you got one salesperson, 100 salespeople. They get assigned a contact. That's the contact owner. The email comes from the contact owner, and the email is short. So if they do reply, the salesperson gets it. Now you might be thinking, Kyle, my salespeople are so busy. We can't do hundreds of emails a day. It's going to flood their inbox. Yes, it will. Out of office replies, not interested replies, et cetera, et cetera. So the way around that is that you space everything out. I got 1,000 new contacts this month. I'm going to send 25 emails per day for 20 days, right? Or whatever the math works out to. But you want to send it 25, 30, 40 emails per day to drip it out there. It's not a shoot your shot, all 1,000 in one day or in 1 week, spread it out over the month. That's going to reduce the likelihood of spam complaints. It's going to reduce the likelihood of getting your email inbox bogged down by people responding. It's well worth it. Got to do sequences. If you take nothing more from this, I got 2 more bullet points to talk about. If you take nothing more from this, do sequences. HubSpot, Sales Hub Pro, or Apollo. You got to ask the question, can I do sequences, one-off emails? Can I create a workflow where it's automated and I could do sequences? Here's the kicker. If you did do HubSpot, and if you want a discount, just reach out to me and we'll get you set up through the partner thing, and we can get you better pricing than what you can get direct with HubSpot because we know where their pricing can go, so we beat them up pretty bad. Here's the cool thing about it. With sequences, it can be email, 5 days later, task, follow on LinkedIn. So let's build that out. I just thought of that because sometimes I take advantage of the things that we do and I know. So with a sequence, number 1 is going to be email, day 1, right? Next thing is going to be LinkedIn connection. And I'm going to put that as like maybe day 5. The time of these don't really matter like all that much. whether it's day 1, day 3, day 4. So you send an email day 1, you're on day 5, you sent them LinkedIn connection requests, and this is going to have to be manual. Then your next step in the sequence, let's say we want to create a task to call. Day 9. So you sent them an email, you then sent them a LinkedIn connection request. Hopefully they responded and engaged back and connected with you. Then you've got a task to call day 9. Then you're like, you know what? I want to go back to automation. Then you're going to do email number 2. FU stands for follow up. Maybe this is on day 16. Then maybe you go email 3. Then you go day 28. Then maybe there's another task. Then, so on and so forth. But you build out this sequence where this sequence here, this could be for a cold contact. Cold contact's going to work through this. First, you email them, try and make it warm. Then you're going to send them a connection request. They still don't know you, but maybe this breaks that level of trust. Maybe that breaks that level of trust, and you're like, hey, it's an icebreaker. You don't know me, but here's my resume basically on LinkedIn. Here's everything I know and where I've worked. Then you have a task to call them. Then you email them number 2. Maybe email 3 is next. Then you have a task for, let's say, follow up LinkedIn. Then maybe your last one is like a 4th email at day 50, 40, and you're like, the last email is going to be, hey, apparently you're probably not interested, or something along those lines. You won't hear back from me. Let me know if you want this newsletter in the future, or something like that. Like you're doing like the last ditch effort, like a Hail Mary. Like, do I even have the right person here? This is for a cold contact. Then you do the same thing, build out the workflow, the sequence, the same thing for warm contacts, the same thing for follow-ups on the unsold. So taking a page out of Grant Cardone's book, the unsold, which are people that you quoted, these are one of the most valuable people besides the customers that you have. The next lowest hanging fruit for you is the unsold. People you quoted and couldn't close. You can have a whole unsold sequence. Hey, email number 1. I know it's been a while since we last engaged. Maybe you can pull variable data from your CRM system and say, it's been 85 days since I last reached out to you. But you build out these sequences for the different pillars. So pillar 1 is cold, pillar 2 is warm, pillar 3 is the unsold, maybe pillar 4 is like a follow-up type of sequence on a proposal. If you're doing tons of proposals and you're like, dude, I don't have time to send off like one-off emails, you want to throw them into this. Here's the cool thing about sequences, at least in HubSpot. If they reply, the sequence pauses. That is key. Take a note on that. If someone replies to a sequence, the sequence pauses. So you don't have to worry. Like with marketing emails, very difficult to be like, well, if they reply, pause the marketing email. No. If they reply, you can send them down a different channel. But what happens if they reply and it isn't recognized? What happens if they open it, but they didn't have cookies enabled, so you couldn't see that they opened it? So you have it's more of a foolproof method to say, if they reply, pause the sequence. All right, let's get into number 4. Number 4, copywriting. What's working today in 2024 and will continue to work for at least the next 12 months? Short copy, very short to the point. Like copy that has like 300, 400 words, ridiculous. Unless you're pushing out a case study that somebody asked for it, no copy should be that long. You got to keep it short, less than 200 words max. And that's if you're explaining some things. If you're trying to build trust by doing testimonials or like something that you did in a specific industry to make it relevant to them. The emails that are working the best are the ones that are like 3-4 sentences. Very short, direct to the point, spread out vertically, so it's very easy to digest. You can put a link in there to a video, to an article, to something like that, to a case study. You can put a link in there. But you want to keep it very simple. Because if you look at the emails that are being sent out and you've got like 14 links, you got a link to your email, you got a link to your LinkedIn, you got a link to the content. Maybe you sent 3 different pieces of content. Now you're at 5 links. Then you've got another link to your website in another area. You got a time booking link. Hey, book time with me below, et cetera, et cetera. Like you got all these links. That's just going to flag stuff. That's going to increase your likelihood that even as a sequence, the email system is going to be like, no. You got too many links. Your copy has to be short, direct to the point. You have to play with the subject lines. Be direct. Be creative. Test it. A/B test it or test it and be like, hey, for this email, I'm going to say this. This other email, I'm going to do things a little bit different. Do not believe the email experts out there, like even HubSpot's system will be like, oh, here's 6 templates. Here's 6 templates that work great that we've seen across the board for all our customers. If you ever looked at those templates, they are so stupid. They say things like, what's one that I thought was hilarious? It's like subject line, maybe I crossed the line. And then the first body paragraph is like, between persistence and annoyance, I may have crossed the line because you're not responding. We tested that here because HubSpot was like, dude, this works. I was like, this is so stupid, but let's just test it and see what happens. It tanked. Like, that's the punchline, is that most of those CRM systems, email providers are like, this is what works. It doesn't. It's based on like a conglomerate of B2B, B2C, etc., with industrial, with manufacturing, and really with any B2B, direct to the point, short copy, understand from their POV. They don't have time to read through all these emails. They want to skim it. They're just skimming the copy. Hey, I do facility services for automotive companies in the greater Dallas area. Cool. You put that in there. Somebody in the greater Dallas area that's in automotive is going to read it. Hey, this is relevant. Let me pause a second. Give it another 3 to 5, 7 seconds of my attention. Yes, let me read this further. Click a link. Or nope, this is bullshit. Garbage. Move on. Delete it. Mark it as spam. But like, you have to make it relevant, direct to the point. Anything that's lengthy, people are just going to skim and then discard. The last one's going to be frequency. Number 5. You need to be a little aggressive. Traditionally in industrial, it's like, well, but I don't want to send them 2 emails in 1 month. The way we do it is there's no issue sending somebody an email per week. If nobody's opening it, nobody's clicking it, nobody's engaging, then that method of communication is not working. That's when you need to move on to LinkedIn or a phone call or snail mail or a personal visit. Move on to that. But as far as frequency of like these sequences, once a week is fine. An action once a week, because you know, if you're doing this at scale, like, oh my God, I've called these same people. Like, I've got 500 people I'm calling every single month. You know that, but they don't know that. They just look at it as like the person receiving the call is like, oh yeah, they reached out to me last week. Do not be annoying with your persistence of like every 2 days or every 1 day, but spread it out. Like, there's no reason that you cannot send it 1 per week, 1 touch point per week. Now, once you get to a certain point, bottom of that cold sequence, then you want to move them into a long-term nurture. So frequency of that, it could be like send them an email every 1 to 2 months. It depends on your industry. It depends on the needs. It depends on the conversation, but 1 to 2 months to drip it out. You're trying not to get forgotten about. Maybe the first 5 emails they never open, but then in 3 months, they open up that one that you were waiting for. So you need to set the frequency to be somewhat aggressive for the first, I'd say 2 months. Be persistent and consistent. Don't be annoying, but 1 touch point per week, a task, an email, like every one of those is a touch point that I showed in the cold sequence. You send an email, touch point. LinkedIn connection request, touch point. Schedule a phone call, another touch point. Call them up. Hey, just want to leave you a voicemail. Now, I've said this dozens of times before, and I'll say it every single time I talk about cold calls and emails. There's one rule that you have to follow. If you leave a voicemail, send an email. But they're screening their calls. So you leave a voicemail and they're like, oh, who is this number? I'm not going to answer it. Leave a voicemail. I'm like, okay, whatever. Then you send them an email immediately after it, within like 5 minutes. Hey Joe, left you a voicemail on your desk phone. Want to reach out, talk about XYZ. Let me know when you have time to connect. Hit me back. Like, that's your email back to that. So in that sequence, it could be have a phone call and then a little subsection that says leave voicemail. That should be a rule across the board. You leave a voicemail, you have to follow up with an email immediately after it, letting them know that you left a voicemail. Maybe they never check their voicemail. They'll see the email. They'll engage with that. It's crazy how we'll watch it in our licenses with HubSpot. Somebody leaves a voicemail, they don't answer, they never answer the phone, and then a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes later, they engage on the email and they either open it and click or just open it, or they reply, sorry, not interested, or something like that. It's like, dude, I knew you're screening my stuff. But the only way you're going to figure that out is if you increase the frequency. So once per week for the first, I'd say 4 to 6 weeks. Then from there, you can scale it back once every 1 to 2 weeks. After you get to a certain point, no engagement, once every 1 to 2 months. And if it's like, this is beating a dead horse, find a different contact. Hopefully you've done that by now. Once you get to no response, no engagement, find a different contact. Hopefully you have multiple contacts at that company. But then once you get to a certain point, you can throw them away and be like, I'm not going to reach out to this person anymore. Or maybe I'm going to send them an email once every 6 months. Just trying to stay relevant. Go to my channel, type my name in, Kyle Milan on YouTube, subscribe, turn on notifications. If you guys want to listen to this in podcast form, get this to your phone every day, whether you're getting your nails done or cutting that grass. Follow me on LinkedIn to get some more behind the scenes content, and we will see you on the next one.